So in this video I'm going to introduce the for loop. We'll do this by extending the script that we worked on last time, which was our force calculator, and extend this so that we can now calculate forces due to multiple objects. So instead of having just a single scalar here for the mass, we're going to allow it to be a vector. So I'll just put in some random numbers in there for the mass. And so in this example we may have 5 objects and these are their masses, and we want to calculate the forces and continue on with the rest of the script with each of these. So let's look through now what are the changes that we're going to need to make to this program in order for it to work correctly with this new requirement that mass may be a vector. So the first thing that we're doing here is we're actually calculating the forces by multiplying this number 9.81 by the elements in this mass variable. And so you might ask whether this will actually work as is or whether we need to make any changes. So a good thing to do if you're not sure is actually to just copy those lines and then go and take them over to the MATLAB window and run them. So I can paste it in here and let's have a look. So there were no error messages that were generated, and we see over here in the workspace that a variable force, I can show it here, has been created. And let's just quickly check whether this looks correct. So 9.81, it's easy to see the results for the number 10 and the number 100 here, which are these ones, and yeah, so that's working. So we don't need to make any changes to that particular line. So we've learnt that, that this line here is fine. So now we come down to this point here, and so now we're displaying this message to the user depending on the value of the force. And so here now is where we are going to have to make some changes, because what we're doing here is we're asking the computer to take a particular path depending on the result of a comparison. And so if we look at the result of this particular comparison, there's actually going to be 5 elements in the force vector here. And so if we have 5 elements, then there will be 5 different true or false values that come back from this, and so this if statement is not going to operate correctly. So we're going to need to step through each one in turn, and so that is what the for loop is about. So a for loop works like this. So a for loop will step through particular items in a vector. So we would write syntax like this: for f equals force, indent, and now the value which we're using inside this loop will be our little counter variable f. And so I'll explain the way that this works, and the easiest way will be to set a breakpoint and step through it. So let's run. Our code gets up to here. So look at the value that are in mass. These are the numbers that we just provided. Let's run that. Force now contains these elements, and now we enter the for loop. And so remember here that force is this 5 element vector. So we step inside that, and now f here that's the first element in force. So f is 29.4, first element here was 29.4. And so now our code will run. We do this comparison, is f greater than 200? Well, it's not, so we jump down to the else, and then we run that code. And then we get down now to the end of our for loop, but we've only done the first element, right? There's still 4 remaining. So if I step again, then we go back up to the top, but now our f variable has changed. Now it's the second item in this vector. And so I'll just keep stepping through, and you see what happens each time. The f value is different because we're stepping over all of the items in this vector. And then finally, program is done because we have exhausted all of the items which are in the force vector. So back over here in the command window, this is the output for the program. So basically it's run 5 times, or the printing out to the screen has happened 5 times because there were 5 elements in our vector, and each time we made the choice according to this if statement that you see here. So forces that are greater than 200 newtons were printed out with this textual message, and the other ones had their actual number printed out, which was the logic which we had written here in this if-else structure.